yeah, just it being very difficult to find the customers, especially if you're starting.
Hey everyone, I'm Michelle, the host of the SaleHoo e-commerce podcast, where we interview entrepreneurs, marketers, experts, and people who are knee-deep in the daily grind of the e-commerce world. We want to uncover the latest e-commerce trends and get actionable insights that you can incorporate into your daily hustle as you build your online business. Today, we're interviewing Nikita Vakrushev, who started his own e-commerce brand and then founded his own agency offering e-commerce advertising services with a specialization in email and SMS marketing. After working with 100 plus direct-to-consumer brands, he's here to share with us what he's learned. So thank you, Nikita, and great to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be on, Michelle. I'm excited to chat all things email as well as e-commerce.
Yeah, so first off, can you tell me about your first e-commerce venture? What was it and how did you start?
Of course. It actually started when I was in college. I started by creating a print-on-demand store, and it goes a little bit deeper than that. It actually I started that skill set off in high school. I used to be in print media class, there you basically learn all things Adobe Suite. So you learn Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, Lightroom, basically the whole gambit. And there I set up the foundation of being able to use design tools like Photoshop and Illustrator to design my own t-shirts and sell them to other high schoolers or to other classmates essentially. Um, but when I was a freshman in college, I came across a Reddit thread that was talking about how to make money online by selling print on demand. And I'm like, well, I don't have to do any of the fulfillment. And I already have all these designs that I created in high school. Let me go ahead and give this a shot. And created my Shopify store and then also created an Amazon Seller Central store. And I was able to quickly get a pretty decent following. And then I niched down into, at first I put up a bunch of different designs, everything that I had from high school. Only one of them sold. And then I just took I think it was like a shot in the dark, and I created like this off the cuff design in like the middle of anthropology class for like a Kendrick Lamar based t-shirt, and it immediately started selling like 5 to 10 shirts a day. It got up to like 30 or 40 shirts a day, but eventually that led into me learning more about marketing and more about advertising, email marketing, Google Ads, etc. And that essentially was like the first path to creating my own agency.
Okay, and why did you stop doing that?
Well, in 2017 and 2018, print on demand became very, very saturated,
Mm-hmm.
almost to the point where it was very hard to acquire customers through Facebook ads and Google ads. It started to get really, really unprofitable towards the end. And I honestly just didn't have the skill set that I do now to know how to operate a business correctly, factoring cost of goods sold, margins, average order value. I had no idea what that was back then. And simply put, I just don't think I was skilled enough to continue growing it.
Okay, and you said that you worked with a supplier or you found a company on the internet, basically?
It was honestly like a Shopify app that did
Okay.
all of the fulfillment for me. So all I had to do is just figure out which shirt or sweater or hoodie or whatever it is that I wanted to sell, upload the design, they would confirm that they can make it, and then they would handle all of the manufacturing and fulfillment completely for me, hands off. I just gave them the order, the shipping address, and everything else was just handled for me, and they would ship it to the final destination for me as well.
And how did you find that supplier?
Funny enough, that Reddit thread that I originally like stumbled across, it was like a value thread, but at the same time, the guy was pitching his own service, which was
Okay.
print on demand manufacturing. So it was like, oh, cool, you can do this, but use my company. And I'm like, I don't know any other company that did it. So I just went with it and everything worked out perfectly.
Okay, and how did you, like, was there someone you could contact in that company or how did you get about starting with that company?
Pretty seamless. All I had to do was just get the Shopify app installed. And after I got the app installed, there was like a small onboarding procedure. I really didn't have to have a call with anybody or anything like that. Maybe a few back and forth emails to make sure everything was sized correctly and whatnot. And after that, it was just upload, publish, and see the sales come in essentially.
Okay, and now with your knowledge of e-commerce and how everything works, how important do you think suppliers are? And getting your inventory?
It's by far the most important thing outside of advertising, of course. Like you need to get a customer, you need to sell. Obviously, if you have all these customers that already bought, you can't really fulfill for them because your suppliers, I don't know, you can't get a hold of your supplier, or you can't get a hold of your manufacturing. Then you got a bunch of upset customers, and that just ruins the brand reputation, if anything, and that like that negative word of mouth compounds, and eventually you'll be out of business if you just don't fulfill for your customers at what you promised them.
Yeah, and I think that's why I like things like SaleHoo directory, where we allow beginner entrepreneurs to easily contact and work with the most credible and trustworthy suppliers from around the world, is really important. And the key is that we filter out the suppliers so that you'll only need to choose from the most trustworthy ones. And plus, you have the flexibility to choose from specific locations and regions, including local ones that can pretty much significantly impact shipping times and accessibility. So, what do you think of something like SaleHoo?
I mean, it sounds like a very interesting concept for sure. Like, especially if someone doesn't know how to navigate anything in the e-commerce world, or they don't know how to contact suppliers. I mean, I remember trying to launch a product earlier in the year with my girlfriend, and it was just almost impossible to find a supplier. And I had to go through Upwork to find a person that can help us find a supplier. I forgot the name of them, but he was consulting us with trying to find manufacturing and suppliers, and it was just like it was a lot of friction just to put an idea to paper to then actually make it.
You were saying earlier this year or earlier, like a few years ago, or
No, it was earlier this year.
okay.
Yeah, we were just toying around with an idea, and we're like, okay, cool. How much would it cost to actually like manufacture that specific product, and where we are, what the lead times are, what's the MOQ, just like basics on what we needed to like what the investment needed to be essentially. So like we put in $1,000 just to see like, okay, how much would it cost to actually run this thing? And it was just a headache trying to get suppliers, manufacturers all talking together. We didn't go through with it because other things came up and we just didn't have the time to focus on it. But either way, like it's just a lot to navigate if you're starting.
Yeah, I mean, we have filters like MOQ and where they are based, and whether they're like drop shippers, wholesalers, manufacturers. So we have all of that listed out. So it's pretty easy to use. And I think it would definitely help someone who, was starting an e-commerce business, especially today when there's so many, scammy suppliers out there.
Absolutely. Once your phone's added onto one of those directories, you're nonstop getting hit up on like WhatsApp about all things suppliers.
Yeah. So let's transition to your agency now. So how did you make the decision to pivot to an agency model?
After the market got saturated with e-commerce, and I figured like I don't think I was able to scale it past like 10K a month. And that's just top line revenue. Obviously, you have to pay suppliers, advertise. I was barely breaking even at that point, and I'm like, okay, I have all this skill. Like, I have the skill set on how to run a store. I know how to run Facebook ads or email marketing and Google ads. Like, I know the basics, but I'm just like running on a treadmill with a store. And eventually I had a couple of friends reach out to me and ask like, hey, can you help us out with setting up Facebook ads? Or hey, and then I had another person reach out to me like, hey, can you help me with my Shopify store? And I'm in the back end of Shopify, Facebook ads, and all these other platforms every day. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll help you out. And then eventually got to the point like, hey, I can pay you to do this. And I'm like, you can pay me to do this. So that was like a natural progression into me then charging people to help them out with their store or help them out with their ads. And it, like looking back, it almost feels like blind leading the blind because I almost didn't know what I was doing. I was just going based off like instinct. But they got value out of it, and I think it was like a good interaction overall. That
Okay.
eventually led, sorry, go ahead. That eventually just led me to like grow more as a marketer. Started to invest in courses, started to invest in mentorships and whatnot. Getting better and better at my service delivery, and within like I got in like 2020 is like a good pivot year for me where like things really started to take off within the agency. And eventually we started to hire on team members in like 2021 and 2022.
How did you reach a point where you didn't feel like it was the blind leading the blind?
I would say when we started to actually get results, like, because sometimes, like, in the beginning, it was just like, hey, can you set this up? Can you set this up? Like, it was like one time setups. I wasn't constantly managing like an ad budget, for example. But once I started to actually have an ad budget of like, hey, here's $3,000 per month. Can you manage this and generate more than $3,000 back? And once we started to see like a 3x or 4x or a 5x ROAS on Facebook ads, I'm like, okay, like I actually know I know enough buttons to push in order to get a 5-time return on Facebook ads, or at least that was like back in the day. You can't really, it's kind of hard to do that now, but back then it's like, I know how to design the ads, I know how to design the copy, the landing pages, etc. And the clients are getting results, they're happy, they're staying on for more than a couple months. So it's like, okay, I know what I'm doing. And then it just came down to like refining my skills and seeing different ad testing frameworks or figuring out different creative styles to use. And then it was just like, how do I get better at this now that I know like the baseline?
Okay. So the first ad that you ran, you weren't for your client, you weren't super sure that it would get the returns, right? Because you didn't have the experience yet. So it kind of just was by luck that you got the results for them.
Honestly, the first ads I ran were for myself, and I wasted a lot of money just trying to figure that
For your
out.
t-shirt business or for your print on demand business or for okay.
Yeah, for the print on demand business, it was like, okay, cool. Like I thought I was capped out at the amount of sales I can make. So I'm like, organically at least, let me go ahead and try advertising. So I tried it. I think I burned like 2 grand just like trying to figure out different ad creatives and whatnot. I think I sold the shirts at like 20 or 25 bucks, and my cost per acquisition was like $40. So immediately in the negative. Um, but through like different trials and different creative tests and then watching YouTube videos and then maybe like watching a course that maybe my friend sent me, I got better and better at it. And so when it came down to the client, I was I was unsure about how I was going to perform, but I obviously gave it my all into seeing how, like based off of everything that I knew, to set up the ads, to set up the creatives, the copy, etc. And it worked out tremendously. Like we kept that client on for, well, funny enough, like we had them on as an ads client for about 5 months, and then they switched to doing all their ads in-house, and we still have them as an email marketing to this day.
For people running their e-commerce businesses now, how do you view what's your outlook on Facebook ads, you would say, in today's climate?
It's almost like a necessary evil. Like back in the day, it's a great way to get your business out there. Now it's like you need it. You hate to use it, but you need it. You know, it's almost like cleaning your house if you don't enjoy it. It's like you need to do it, but you don't enjoy doing it. So it works well when it works well, but man, does it suck when it doesn't. Even though I'm not doing ads anymore and we switched out of doing ads about 2 or 3 years ago into just doing email and SMS, I have a lot of friends that are media buyers and I have a lot of friends that run Facebook ad agencies. And I think it was like a month ago where they were like, man, this algorithm, like there was like an algorithm change or something and their CPMs were doubled. And I'm like, man, that sucks. So it's like hard to control specific variables. And even then, like when you do have a control over the variables, like Facebook could just take your account away like that. And you can't really do anything about that.
So you would say right now the cost per acquisition is very, very high.
Absolutely. It's just very hard to acquire customers. Like not at scale. Like once you're hitting a specific scale period and you have creatives that work, it's a little bit easier. But I think a lot of it just comes down to, yeah, just it being very difficult to find the customers, especially if you're starting. You have to spend a lot of money to get some sort of traction on the ad side of things to where the feedback loop from the ads, understanding what kind of customer converts, so that way you're able to scale. So it's like a big hill that you have to cross before it gets easier, if you see where I'm coming from.
Is that why you transitioned to email and SMS?
It was one of the reasons, definitely. I think email and SMS was in my head, it was a lot easier to systemize, but looking back at it for the last 2 years, wasn't the case. Anything that's good and anything that works still takes a lot of effort to systemize and takes a lot of effort to set up correctly. It doesn't matter which skill set you go into, that you still have to go really, really deep into it. In order to do that, it takes a lot of time and effort. But another reason was that when we did have Facebook ad clients, especially at scale, depending on the client, like 6 or 7 of them would do a fantastic job, but like out of 10. But those other 3 or 4, we just weren't able to deliver the results for, and that just really hurt me. Like not only hurt our churn, but it also hurt me morally because whenever I'm on these sales calls, I like to promise like, hey, we're gonna kill it for you, we're gonna crush it. And then, 3 months down the road, you have the same conversation of like we weren't able to do the things that we promised. It was just like it hurt my, I guess, confidence in a way where like I had a hard time selling the product when I know like clients in the back of my head are like, you're not performing or like you're not doing a good enough job. We didn't have as much of a problem on the email and SMS side. And if anything, I'd say like almost like 9.5 out of 10 people that we bring on the email and SMS side are crushing it. That half are maybe not good client fits, and it was more of like a culture fit problem rather than us executing problem.
Okay. And what exactly do you do for companies now, e-commerce brands now, in terms of email and SMS? Do you just set it up and let it run, or like create the flows, or do you, the artwork and like the newsletters and everything?
Yeah, we handle the whole entire, I guess, the whole entire package. So whether you're just starting off or you're already an existing brand, like we can handhold you throughout the entire process. So for like startup brands, we can do all of their automations and all their flows set up for them. And that means doing the copy, the design, the strategy, the segmentation, the pop-ups, pretty much everything that is involved within email marketing, we can handle completely for them. But on the off chance, if they already have everything set up and they just need us to handle their campaigns, we do that as well. If they need updates on their flows, we've done that as well. Or even a consultation if they have an in-house email marketing team, but they don't have enough data and enough experience like we do, because we handle a dozen clients at a time. So we have a lot of different data points to choose from of like, if a client is facing like a deliverability problem, we know exactly how to handle that because we've done it time and time again. So we've handled consultations before and working with clients and their email teams and getting them leveled up as well.
Kind of just walk me through, if you were working with a startup e-commerce brand, like what would the onboarding process be like and what would you be doing for them?
Yeah, the onboarding process is pretty simple. We only need a few things from them. Number one is getting customer avatar information or like at least a vague idea of who they think their ideal customer is. So understanding that. Any visuals or any photography, lifestyle photos, UGC, maybe hard to do UGC because they just started. But at least having some sort of imagery of the product packaging, that sort of thing, giving us some visuals to work with. So when we design the emails, they look good with their branding and whatnot. And then number three is just giving us full control because then we'll be able to speed up the entire fulfillment process and like trusting us with the strategy that we're creating. Because then what we do is we just set up the entire flow strategy for them. And then we'll also work with them if they want to, a campaign calendar for their launch as well.
What are some tips of them actually getting emails for their, to actually market to?
Yeah, the best way that we've seen it work is if you're already running, getting a pop-up set up. It's pretty standard. I mean, I'm sure you've seen a lot of pop-ups where, get 10% off, free shipping, etc., having some sort of offer on the pop-up. If you're starting up, I would say the first thing you can do, and like these are going to be like your best contacts ever, is everyone that's in your phone book, like all of your friends, family, relatives. I'm not saying this is just a one time. You're not going to constantly add your grandmother to your email list. But outside of that, you can then go ahead and you just run Facebook ads to capture emails. And I would recommend doing some sort of like launch giveaway to just get some initial interest for people to sign up through to your email list.
But would it be really expensive to run those ads given, now the climate now?
Honestly, when you're doing lead generation ads, especially if they're a Facebook form rather than going to your website, I've seen lead costs be as cheap as like 50 cents per email.
But how would you know that they're like actual people who would, because sometimes Facebook gives you those emails that aren't people who are likely to purchase. Like, do you have any tips on how you could really see if like these emails are legit? Or do you see that they're legit?
With Facebook lead forms, you had a good point. Facebook pre-fills your information that you signed up with your Facebook account or your Instagram account. A lot of times that's not the best way to reach that person. So what we do is we make them manually enter their email address. So that is one way that's like, oh, like which email am I going to use? It's like the one that I use every day. So they're more likely to submit the real information there. But customer interest is a good point. One of the ways that we do that is by having a welcome flow set up. So we can gauge how people are responding to the welcome flow based off of the analytics. If we see that all of the people that are going through the Facebook ads and they're going through that welcome flow and they're not responsive, or like the open rates are low, or maybe they're not clicking and the click through rates are low, then we can see like, okay, then maybe we need to adjust the targeting on the ad side of things. And that's how we kind of like reverse engineer like the top of the funnel essentially.
Okay, and right now in today's climate, you see that by doing that it actually works, or you have to do a lot of refinement to actually get to the point where you're getting emails that are actually spending money buying products.
Honestly, we haven't had a problem with it, so it hasn't been too much of an issue when we ran the ads. Like we've gotten a pretty decent list of like 500 to 1,000 people off the bat. And while most didn't buy immediately, we still saw a pretty good conversion rate within a 6 month window because it does take time to convert a customer and convince them that, hey, this is a product that's worth checking out because it makes your life easier on, whatever the product is. We still had a pretty good conversion rate within a 6 month window of that initial pool of people that we got from the ad side.
Okay. And how do you deal with emails? Like right now there's a huge crackdown on like privacy laws. Like how do you deal with emails not getting sent or just landing in the spam box?
Yeah, one of the ways that we try to mitigate that is by only sending out to people that are actively opening up our emails within a 3 to 6 month window. If people haven't opened up your email in more than 6 months and you've sent them maybe like more than a dozen emails, they're not going to open up that next email that you're going to send them. So we like to exclude those people because the more of those people you have on your list, for example, like if you send out to 10,000 people and maybe 1,000 of them are those unengaged contacts that really don't open up your emails, Google, Yahoo, iCloud, Outlook, they're all going to see that, hey, there's a pretty big chunk of people that you're sending to that never open up your emails. So if these emails are not relevant to these people, then they're probably not going to be relevant to these other people. And that could be more people on your list. And that just causes your emails to either go to spam, go to promotions, not even delivered at all. So we try to segment out people that just either like that just don't engage.
So it's like a lot of maintaining your email lists as well, right?
Yeah, so we want to maintain the list consistently and just clean it every quarter. So we have segments set up based on specific behaviors of the user. So for example, if they subscribed more than like 90 days ago, they've received more than 15 emails, they've opened zero, that just shows us that that's a person that is not interested. And we keep that segment around just to exclude people from future sends. And then eventually at the end of a quarter, we go through the lists and see like, okay, do we need to delete these people? Are they worth checking in on? Should we put them through a win back flow before, we unsubscribe them? That sort of thing. And then after that, if it comes down to it and we're not we're not going to be sending out to these people, we just delete them off the list. And that also lowers your bill on Klaviyo and other sending platforms as well.
Okay, so is that the platform that you recommend using for all e-commerce brands, Klaviyo?
Klaviyo is our go-to mainly because it just easily integrates with everything Shopify and everything, like basically everything WooCommerce or everything e-commerce. So that means Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento. Our team is pretty much trained up on all things Klaviyo, so it's just easier to navigate from everyone on the team. That doesn't mean that we're not using other platforms. We have some clients on SendLane, some clients on ActiveCampaign, some clients on MailChimp. We prefer Klaviyo because it's just it's not the easiest tool to use, but it is the one that everyone is congruent on, and it's a lot easier to troubleshoot anything if anything does come up on the Klaviyo side.
Okay, and from your data, how often do you think e-commerce brands should be sending emails to their customers?
I think at least once a week, if not twice a week. That has been like a really good balance that we found is once a week is good to check in, but twice a week is just good to consistently follow up with people and keep yourself top of mind.
Okay. And can you also kind of give some background on what email flows every e-commerce business should have when they're starting out?
Great question. Typically, when we have a startup brand come to us and they need an email system set up for them, we handle the welcome flow, which basically brings in anyone that's like a window shopper or anyone that applies to the pop-up to learn more about the brand, learn more about the story of the brand, the products, why the product is superior, that sort of thing. Abandoned checkout, which follows up with people if they were in the checkout but they dropped off and they didn't finish checking out. Abandoned browse, if they were browsing a product and they left the store for whatever reason, we'll follow up with them there. Abandoned site, if they were anywhere on the website, then we can just follow up with them post-purchase. So just thanking them for the purchase, making sure that everything's all right, opening up the conversation if they have any questions or if they have any problems with their order before they write a negative review, ideally. And then a win-back flow, which basically goes through the list of people that haven't engaged and sends them out one last email or last two emails to see if they'd still be interested in engaging. And if not, then we take them off the list. And then lastly, a cross-sell flow. So if you do have multiple products that are very compatible with each other or complementary, it's best to have a cross-sell flow set up. If not, it's not a big deal. And if it's just a one product store, there's really not much to cross-sell. But I'd say those are like the 5 or 6 core flows that we set up for all of our clients.
Okay. And what do you see is the biggest mistake that e-commerce brands are making with email marketing?
I'd say they leave out a lot of important information from the top of the email. So, for example, like headlines, call to actions, or any important coupon codes or anything like that. It's always at the bottom of the email, and no one really scrolls anymore unless it's really important. So, keeping all that information front and center to where a person just click and then they go to the landing page or wherever you're sending them to is very important. So, keeping all that information above the fold is something that a lot of e-commerce brands are missing out on.
Okay. And so let's turn to SMS. So how would you start with SMS for an e-commerce client?
Typically, we don't start SMS at the same time as email. It's something that we start off after like a month or two of working together, mainly because it gives us enough time to understand the customer language better, understand what the sending schedule is and whatnot. Um, but SMS is pretty straightforward. You just have to use a platform or find a platform that does SMS. Like Klaviyo has it. You have Postscript. Sendling has it. Attentive, whatever it is. Register for a phone number. Update your terms and conditions, and start collecting phone numbers. If you're not doing SMS yet, I obviously still weigh the pros and cons. But what I would want you to do is start getting people signed up to your SMS list regardless if you're sending or not. Because when you do start sending SMS, you'd like pat yourself on the back and that you started collecting those SMS numbers because it's very like it takes a lot of time to collect a pretty decent list of SMS phone numbers.
And how would you actually collect SMS phone numbers? Same with the pop-up or?
Yeah, so typically what's worked best for us is a two-step pop-up. So the first step is an email collect, and then the second one is an SMS collect. We've ran tests time and time again, and that has always been the best performer for collecting phone numbers. You can also run ads that say like text this keyword to this number to get this offer. That's been a really great way to get people subscribed to our SMS list. And I'd say like those are like the main two ways that we've done it. We've also retargeted our own email list. So we've sent out an email telling people to subscribe to our SMS list if they want to be a part of an exclusive launch or some sort of exclusive deal that isn't available to email users. And that's been a really great incentive to get more SMS phone signups.
Okay. So when you say a two-step pop-up, is it so it's the same pop-up, but the first, I guess, pop-up would collect the email and then the same exact pop-up right after would ask for a phone number?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's in the same screen, like nothing goes away. It's just like the same pop-up that's still existing. And it just goes to like, hey, we do SMS too. Sign up to get exclusive SMS deals. And people just put in their phone number, confirm, and then you get the thank you page of the pop-up after that.
And in your data, you find that people usually submit both, or do they like kind of leave after submitting the email?
It's about like a 10 to 20% drop off after they submit the email. So about 80% of people sign up with SMS as well. So let's say you have 100% email, 80% SMS, So it's a small drop off, but still it's a pretty good way to collect phone numbers.
Okay. And how often do you think you should be texting these customers?
Yeah, so that is a fantastic question. It's nothing like email. SMS is very, very personal because, it's your phone number, it's where all your friends are and where your family's at to like text them. So we typically do one every other week, and we hold off to sending a lot of SMS messages until there's a big either sale period, product launch period, or for like something like Black Friday. That's when we reserve a lot of SMS communications because that's peak buying behavior, and we want to contact them as many times as possible. But other than that, the more you send out SMS messages, the more you burn through your list because SMS has a higher unsubscribe rate than email because it's just easy. You just reply back stop and they stop sending you messages. And there's a lot of privacy laws to the point where like it's hard to recontact someone that's unsubscribed from your SMS list. So there's a lot more privacy involved there. So that's why we try to like reduce the amount of SMS that we send to only one every other week.
Okay. And in the brands that you're working with now, how much of their revenue is contributed due to email and SMS, would you say?
I'd say email typically is 25 to 30% of their total revenue. So if a brand's doing 100K, about 30K of that should be coming in from email. And SMS is an additional 5 to 10% on top of that. So ideally, you're looking about like in best case scenario, about 40% of your revenue coming in from retention channels like email and SMS together.
Okay. And would it be correct to say that, email and SMS are very responsible for upselling products too? So once you retain a customer, selling them more things than if you were just to get a customer straight from Facebook or Google who just buys like one thing.
It's significantly easier to retarget and it's almost free at that point because you already have that data. So if they did come in from Facebook or Google, a lot of the revenue is made through email and SMS because you already have that data and you reach out to them on a bi-weekly basis or an every other week basis with SMS. So it's cheap and it's also very reliable in order to get orders and more revenue for the brand.
Okay. And what would you say is the biggest difference between a e-commerce company doing email marketing and SMS marketing by themselves versus having an agency do it for them?
Everyone can do their own email marketing to an extent, but not everyone has access to the amount of data that we have and the amount of different clients that we service. So when it comes down to it, our main selling point is just we know more. And it's not like a brag. It's just we have a lot more data. We have a lot more access to accounts. I think I have access to, we don't have this many clients, but I have access to about like 50 different Klaviyo accounts. So even if someone is not a client, I can still see like, oh, someone's in the jewelry niche that wants to do something specific. I may have access to a jewelry niche client that I'm doing an audit for as well. And I can see, oh, they've tried this specific thing. It didn't work out for them. So maybe it's not the best way to do it for you as well, if that makes sense. So it's just, we have a lot more data to work with, so we know a lot more and we're able to make better decisions in the strategy overall.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so last question. What are some of the biggest tips you would give someone who is looking to start their e-commerce business today?
I would say be prepared to spend a lot of money on advertising.
How
Not only
much?
that, but I mean, at least have like a $10,000 budget set aside for ads for the first couple of months until you're profitable. And even then, it depends on the product that you sell. I would also recommend to have a higher AOV product because it like the higher your average order value, the more you're able to spend to acquire a customer. So you're able to break even, if not be a little bit positive to just get that first time buy, but you make more money obviously on the second time buy. And obviously having a good supplier network and having a good manufacturer network is very important. I've seen a lot of e-commerce businesses die out because they weren't able to get their shipments in on time and they had to wait 2 weeks, and that just ruined a lot of that ruined a lot of people's days, especially if they worked the customer service lines for that brand, because they had a lot of upset customers that didn't get their order in on time.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Nikita, for this interview. It was really informative, and I think a lot of listeners will learn a lot from your e-commerce tips. So if you want to get more actionable insights on the e-commerce industry, be sure to subscribe to our SaleHoo e-commerce podcast and also our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. Thank you and see you in the next episode.